Hey everybody. People always ask me, Manny, what tools should I be using for my Amazon business? Well, this episode is brought to you by helium10.com. These are the same tools I use to generate 6 figures per month with Amazon FBA. I get keyword research, product tracking, listing optimization, search term tracking, account monitoring, and a lot of other brand new money pulling tools that are going to be released to Helium 10 members on a regular basis. If you're going to grab any tools, check these out. Seriously, get a massive advantage with the tools that top sellers are using right now. Okay, and they're all in one place. Some tools and services will have a user cap, so get in there as quickly as you can. That's helium10.com, helium10.com.
Warning, the following podcast has been classified as insanely lucrative. Listener discretion is advised.
What would you say are the biggest roadblocks that prevent people from going from that level to $10,000 to $15,000 per month and up?
Your attention, please. Listening to the AM/PM podcast may cause recurring revenue streams and unfair advantages over your competitors. Other side effects may include fatter wallets, fired bosses, and longer vacations. Listen at your own risk. Here's your host, 7-figure entrepreneur and online marketing madman, Manny Coates. Manny Coates.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AM/PM podcast. My name is Manny Coates, and I will be your host, and this is the show where we discuss all things Amazon private label and how to generate recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM, hence the name of the show, AM/PM podcast. As a matter of fact, we just put together a few boxes of brand new products that we're sending out to 2 different photographers. One's a lifestyle photographer, another is more of the white background type photographers, and we want to see how well they do, how awesome the images will come out, and compare them to each other and to the other photographers we've used so that I can come back and report to you guys how awesome or not awesome they are, and let you guys in on some of that action. And guess what, guys? While I was communicating with those photographers, I was making money. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. So today's episode is an interview I did with Jason Katzenback. He is one of the co-founders of Amazing.com. It's a cool company, cool guys, and Jason's an awesome dude. I hope you enjoy this interview. It runs just over an hour in length, but I think you'll walk away with hopefully at least a nugget or 2. That's what I always try to do with every episode that I bring you guys. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into that interview. Hello, everybody. I am here with Jason Katzenback. Over the past 10 years, Jason has generated close to $100 million in revenue for his companies and has taught thousands of people who are now earning millions of dollars each and every month. Back in 2012, Jason and his partner, Matt Clark, launched the Amazing Selling Machine and put the business model of using Amazon to sell your own brand of physical products on the map. He's also the co-founder of Amazing.com, which focuses on helping people build successful businesses. Jason, how are you doing?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. People might be wondering how we met, so I'm going to just do a real quick intro to that. I was out in Austin a few months back and was having some lunch with your business partner, Matt Clark. And then we had set up a dinner with the ladies, with our girls to go out, and he had invited you to come out, and that's how we met. We started talking at the table, and I found out that Jason is an avid race car driver like myself. And ever since then, we've communicated regularly on Skype, and then I went out and spoke at the Amazing event, which, by the way, Jason, congratulations, man. That was an awesome event. It was so cool. I've never been to an event that was like so well put together. It was just, it was fantastic.
Thanks, man. We've been doing them for a while now, and being able to deliver that value is something that's just a blast to do. Because we're very proud that by the end of the 3rd day, the seats are still full. People are still running to get in. So yeah, thank you very much, and you did a killer job. I mean, I've heard nothing but good feedback about your presentation, so it was a win-win.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. So your business partner over at Amazing.com, Matt Clark, he was on the podcast back in, episode 68? This was in August. And for those of you that haven't listened to that episode, Jason, give us a 1-minute version of how you guys came together to create that monster, that we all know now as Amazing.com.
Yeah, so I started online back in 2004, 2005. That's when I went full-time, quit my job. And one of the things I focused on right away back in the day was building an email list. So I was very good at doing the SEO stuff. And because of building that email list and leveraging what I was good at through affiliate marketing and things like that, I was able to create a list of about 250,000 people. And I was running a very successful business. It was doing a few $1 million a year. And me and Matt both joined, didn't know each other, but we joined what was called the Mavericks. It's a system designed, like a networking group designed for businesses that are doing a minimum of $1 million a year in gross revenue. And we were put on a mastermind call together. And it was a great mastermind, some really high level players in it doing very well. And, I always enjoyed teaching people and sharing, the things that I've learned. And I heard this young guy at the time who was only 24 years old, who was doing like $100,000 a month on Amazon. And my ignorance at the time, it was Amazon, so you're an affiliate marketer. And he's like, no, I'm selling my own products. And I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. So started talking to him. And then the owner of the Mavericks, Yannick Silver, had him do a presentation. And it was just amazing, this whole business model of, private labeling your own products and selling them on Amazon. So I asked him, I said, would you ever be interested in teaching this model and creating a system for helping, other people do this? And he was absolutely, I would 100% love to. That's something I've always desired to do. And, my next question was, but are you afraid of competition? And at that time, nobody was on Amazon. I mean, comparatively, it was all big brands, and he was not afraid of competition at all. So that was the start of it. He taught me how to sell on Amazon. Within 4 months of me having my first Amazon business, I was doing over $100,000 a month in pure profit. It was insane. I was selling back in those days, though. I was one of the first Garcinia Cambogia guys selling supplements. But I never had a business model that took off like that before. And so we really refined that and figured out how to teach people. And it just exploded. And, I'm thankful, you saw at the event yourself, we have, thousands of people who give us credit to helping change their lives because of, this amazing business model.
Yeah, for sure. And that's an awesome story. I remember, it's funny you bring back some memories. I remember Yannick Silver and getting those emails where he'd have like 0G events where you could go up in planes and experience, that space feeling.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. I've had some great experiences with the Mavericks. It's, that's part of life, is just having the best experiences. That's why I love racing. I don't want to just live and watch TV. In fact, I hate watching TV. Well, that's not true. I like watching some movies every now and again, but it's about enjoying life and getting the most out of it. And, running your own business gives you the fuel to be able to do that.
Awesome. Your Amazon business, the FBA side of stuff, versus the amazing.com business, you have those completely separated, right?
Yeah. So me and Matt are not business partners on our physical product side at all. I have multiple brands that are completely separate from amazing.com. Okay. Which, it's just such a good business model, of course. I mean, we're going to keep doing it. Matt has his own brands as well, so we definitely have that, but they are completely separate.
Okay, so let's get the basics out of the way, because the listeners always want to know where the guest is today. So if you can share, what are your numbers and the monthly sales and how many SKUs generate those sales?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I haven't looked today. So I have. So just to give you a little bit of info onto that. So the way we have this business set up is, initially I was involved in the business from the Amazon standpoint, very much in the day-to-day. And then as started growing and obviously had more income, I started hiring people. So I'm very much day to day from the perspective of, I meet with people daily for just a very quick meeting. Once a week, we have a very focused meeting, but I'm very much in the leadership side of that company right now. And we've got brands in automotive, we got brands. So I've got three SKUs in automotive. I've got 5 SKUs in house and home, and we've got 20 plus in another house and home, but completely, one's more kitchen focused and the other is more home focused. And altogether, anywhere from about 150 to 200,000 a month, easily. So yeah.
Yeah, some very nice figures. So how many brands total make up all of these SKUs?
3 significant brands. They're 3 completely different business models.
Okay.
And one of them, the newest one here is really taking off and skyrocketing. It's really exciting. And the funny thing about that brand was I fell into that brand by accident because I was trying to help family members get going. And for this brand, it was my mother-in-law, and she just didn't like running the business. I think anyone can succeed at this, but not everyone, if that makes sense. Like, it's definitely, if it's not something you enjoy doing, if you don't want to sit there and work hard at it, it's not going to work for you. And she just didn't like it. It was a little too much for her. So I thought, I invested this original money for her to be able to get started. And it's like, I don't want to waste it, so I'll take it over. And over the last few months, I've really been able to transform it. It was a little hard for me to want to be involved in it before because so much other stuff going on, but now we've really skyrocketed. So
that's cool. So a lot of people, you'll hear them teaching and training, whether they got a podcast or a course or a blog or whatever it is, and they say, anybody can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. But the reality, you just kind of hit it on the head there. Not everybody can do it. Everybody's not engineered or built the same way. So, I have friends that no matter what, I can't get them to work more than 8 hours. 8 hours and 1 minute, that's too much in a day. They won't put the grind in no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's going to prevent you. That's what prevents people from hitting that next level. And I have to admit myself, my true passion, what I get out of bed and just get excited for is really the teaching, the motivating, and the encouraging side, like really being able to strategize with people and help them to really grow their business. I have to admit, so over the last December, my oldest daughter ended up getting diagnosed with a really aggressive form of cancer called Ewing sarcoma. And, during that time, I was able to financially just step away. I told everyone with Amazing and with my physical brands that I'm stepping out. I'm just focusing right now, which, first of all, is such a privilege that so many people, can't do that. But what I did is it really rejuvenated me to really understand what I was focused on, because when I started the first couple of months after I just took a break and really focused on my daughter, the first couple of months I started trying to get back into it. I had to admit to myself that, you know what? I love the Amazon business. Well, it's not an Amazon business model. I got to be careful with that. The physical products business model, but it's not what gets me going in the morning. I don't sit here and get excited. So I've really focused this last little while on 100% just working essentially about an hour and a half to 2 hours a week on that business model and letting my team run it, because it's just not for me. And it's a great business model, don't get me wrong, but when you have another option that financially is very lucrative as well too, you should follow that. So many people think this is going to be great, but then they pick a product they don't like, they lose passion, it just kind of dwindles on them. So I had that, privilege this year to really focus and wake up in the morning and say, what do I want to do? What do I want to be working on? And it's, again, awesome. I love being able to do it, but it just really wasn't where my heart was. And so I've learned that. And I think it's a valuable lesson for people, don't force things. And especially if you're not willing to work really hard for it. Now, just because I dropped the bomb about my daughter, I do want to say that in October, I'm very thankful that she did get the all clear. So right now her cancer is in remission, and obviously we're going to be checking every 3 months, but just something to share.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that was a very moving speech that you gave at the event. So I got to meet your daughter at dinner the first time I was out there. So that was really cool.
Awesome.
I'm glad to hear that you're able to only work just a couple hours a week on this, because I'm working insane amount of hours. So clearly you're outsourcing almost every part of
I
that
don't
particular
outsource
business.
barely anything. I've actually hired in like right here. Well, I guess when you say outsource, it technically is, but these I've created actually business relationships, business partnerships with them where they have ownership stake in it. I'm still very involved, and especially from understanding how Amazon works. But it's very much that every week we set goals and then they focus on it. But I have to keep up to date obviously on all of that. So I'm definitely not out of the picture on how Amazon works. In fact, I feel that I'm extremely good at it still.
So that's interesting. So are you more in a capacity of like an investor with people that have brands and products and accounts?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not growing that at all anymore either. I just, because the reality is, in my head when I first started that, it was wrong to think, you could just hire people and, invest with people and they'll take off. But the reality is, especially in any business relationship, if it's not equal, there's going to be challenges. I thought, well, I'll do this and invest in this and then walk away. Well, these people are looking for leadership, and just because they got to where they were, and it's not like, we'll do this and step away. It's like you have to work. It was a very hard plan. At first, you had to work a lot of hours to work with them, and then you slowly, as they get more and more competent doing the things, I had to step away more and more. And then it was to a point where I didn't know how to step away. And, the silver lining in the thing with my daughter was that forced me to step away and forced people to step up to the bat. And I'll tell you, it was a tough transition at first. Our companies suffered, the physical products companies suffered for a few months because people were kind of running in all directions. And once I was able to come back and really help it, we did a lot of restructuring because of that, because it made me realize that we had people that just weren't good fits for the company. Did a lot of restructuring, and I'm very proud of the direction it's going in now. And in fact, we've cut costs so much, we've become extremely highly profitable. So all of these things actually kind of worked out for good. I hope that makes sense what I said there.
Yeah, it does. And now, are you speaking about the amazing.com staff and business, or are you talking about the physical products business?
Just my physical products.
Okay, all right.
Physical products.
There's a lot of pretty big sellers and successful sellers that are using multiple seller accounts at Amazon. They do it right. They do it the legal way. Are you also doing this with all the different brands that you have? Or are you keeping everything?
Yeah, they're completely different companies, totally different company entities, 100% separated. No one logs into any, it's all very strict dividing, because, at the end of the day, the Amazon wants, a corporation's considered, it has an identity. It's almost considered a person. So you focus it that way, but you have to be still very careful because, the reality is Amazon isn't here to be your best friend. And if your products are removed from Amazon, someone else's products will just take up the slack. So, you still want to be careful and make sure you're not doing things that would set off red flags with them. But that's how we set it up. And it's worked out very well. Yeah.
Let me go back to the multiple seller accounts, because this is actually a topic that a lot of people are interested in. When you're obviously keeping everything separate makes sense, right? You have your different entities, okay, your corporate entities. So you have your tax IDs, you got a different bank account, different address, different phone numbers. You want to be smart and make sure that everything is legitimately a separate company. But Amazon does ask for your name. Is it okay, in your opinion, to put the same name, the same person that's running the different companies? Because that happens a lot,
well,
right?
First of all, I'm not the only person running the companies. So different names can be used. And you know what? It starts to make you feel a little nervous even talking about this stuff, because it's Amazon, if they just all of a sudden they find something, they don't have to be fully educated on it, they can hurt your business. So every corporation is completely different. They have different addresses, different locations, all of that kind of stuff. And they were all created at different times as well too. And so I personally don't use my name on any of the businesses. So how we've structured it is I actually have a Canadian corporation that is my umbrella corporation, I guess you could say, that then owns a U.S. corporation, and that U.S. corporation then owns each of the other three corporations. So there's never anything direct from that corporation to me. And one of the big reasons too is liability. I'm always, we have insurance and we're very focused on offering high quality products. But, as you grow a business, the last thing you want to do is, if you get sued, it be able to come back to you. And especially just, I should say that better. That didn't sound right, to come back to you, but to protect yourself. Because if you're doing your due diligence and everything, but you own the company just straight out yourself and, they can direct it to you, you could lose a lot. You could go into court for a long time. But the way I have it set up, it's protected very well. And it's quite easy to do. You can create corporations very easily. Obviously, I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal genius in any way. I'm only recommending, I'm not even recommending.
You're just telling us what you do.
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect.
So that's how we've done it. But I do admit, we are cautious of those kind of things with names and everything. And that's why we set up the companies. So with each of the corporations that I own, the different brands, so two of them has the same business partner, but a third one has a different business partner. So they're all slightly different in that way too.
Yeah, and it's very common for people to be the founders, the CEOs, presidents of different companies as well. So I think as long as you're not trying to game the system, if you can go in front of an Amazon panel and very clearly explain what you're doing, and it doesn't sound really weird or shady in any way, you should be fine. And it makes sense in terms of financial reasons. If you're planning on having an exit strategy and you want to sell your brand, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, whenever it is, having things separated makes sense. So I think Amazon realizes that now.
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. So what would be one of the biggest things that you would outsource if you were starting out new, that you would outsource right away or get rid of those tasks so that you could focus on other things? What's made the biggest difference?
So I kind of have a strategy that I follow for that, but really, initially it's the things that have to get done daily that take you away from growing your business. And usually it's just checking stats, and not even checking stats so much, but checking all the vital things of your account to make sure that customer support is answered and responded to, that there's no Amazon account alerts, that, just audit the listings every single day, check the reviews and feedback every single day. Those core functions that are so critical because Amazon is so hard on people for that, which, understandably, they want to give great customer experiences. But it's those things that if you let slide, I remember when I first started, I didn't answer emails every day, and all of a sudden, boom, I started getting in trouble. Amazon wants that 24-hour response time. So just managing those right from the get-go so you're not sitting there wasting time. And especially the communications, because, so many times, you log in, all of a sudden you get sidetracked doing these other things. So taking those tasks that have to get done every day and start with those. That would be my recommendation.
Cool. And I agree. Yeah. All that little stuff eats up hours and hours. And before you know it, you're like, what did I do today?
Oh, so something that I learned a few years ago that really helped me is, I look at the tasks that I'm doing. I make sure, and this is hard to do and you don't have to do it forever, but just do it for about 2 or 3 weeks. And every day write down the tasks that you work on and be totally honest with yourself. Oh, I spent 45 minutes on Facebook. Go back every couple of hours and think about the things you did. And then what you do is you start to categorize those tasks and figure out which task is something that someone getting $10 an hour could do, someone making $40 an hour can do, someone making $100 an hour can do, and something doing $1,000 an hour can do. And you just break it up kind of in that way. And then all of a sudden you start looking at all these $10 an hour tasks that you have that are filling up your day. And obviously, when you're first starting, you have to do everything if you don't have the income. But those are the things that you start categorizing and creating job descriptions for, because those $10 an hour tasks, if that's what you focus on every day, you are going to have a $10 an hour profit stream. You can't be focusing on those. You've got to get to the $1,000 and $10,000 an hour task, which is networking, strategizing, product development. All of those kind of things are where you should be spending your time. So it's really about, identifying those things. And that's why when people say, what do I hire out? Well, it depends what you're good at. If you're starting out right away, if you're really good at some of those $10 an hour tasks, do them, but get to the point where you have to let them go because you have to start focusing on those bigger tasks and then bigger tasks. So that helped me out a lot and made a huge difference in my companies.
Yeah, that's a great answer. How do you respond to somebody that comes up to you at an event and says, Jason, how much money does it take to start selling on Amazon? to get things going? What's the real answer? Because we've heard people say, oh, you can start with $200, $500.
Yeah. And, you know, thankfully, I mean, I get the perspective of that. I've seen it because I've had, you know, since 2012, been teaching people, a lot of people this. And, you know, back in 2012, one of our first successful students, Daniel, he started with $400 cash. That's all he had. And he is killing. He's making millions every month. I mean, I know the guy is destroying it. And so it was an absolute reality back in the day, $400. Today, you know, I got it. The minimum I could think is $3,000 to $5,000. I mean, if you really want to make this business work for you, absolutely, there's ways you could do it cheaper. You know, maybe $1,000 or $2,000, but really, by the time you look at like the tools that you should be using, the inventory that you need to get, you know, the things you should put into it, my recommendation for people is about $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're probably going to run into inventory issues, like you mentioned. If you do have a product, you've done a really good job in selecting the product, and it starts to take off. You're not going to be paid for a while by Amazon, so you've got to be able to float everything. So if you've spent it all, if you only started with 1,000 and you've spent it all on inventory, you're going to run into a bottleneck.
Oh, yeah. You know, and I've had people say that to me where, you know, they can't grow the business because they don't have enough money to reinvest because they're afraid to spend and they've put everything in their inventory. You know, and it's like, well, yeah, you know, and I mean, you try to be honest on that, but the reality is, I mean, there's always plus and minuses, or, you know, the rare cases where people can start really low, or some people go, you know, right in and they spend, like, I know people that have gone in with $30,000 right away and created this whole brand of multiple products right away. I don't recommend that for the average person, because the more brands you start with, the more product lines you start with, the harder it is to get any one of them going. But you know,
you're splitting your attention across multiple things. You got to do all the listings, all the optimization, all the keyword research.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the maintenance and growing. And, you know, the analogy I always use is, you know, everyone knows Coca-Cola. Then why in the world is there Coca-Cola advertisements everywhere? Because they have to keep promoting. They have to keep getting traffic. They have to keep staying relevant. And you have to do that. A lot of people think they can just throw their product up and, oh, that's it. Amazon takes care of the rest. It's like, no, it doesn't. That's only part of the job. You have to get it in front of people constantly.
Yeah. Makes sense. What about okay? So we have a lot of our listeners are doing pretty well already. And they're generating thousands of dollars per month. What would you say are the biggest roadblocks that prevent people from going from that level to $10,000 to $15,000 per month and up?
I would say, I mean, you know, we challenge this all the time with our members. It's like we badge them, we do gamification so that we can really understand how they're doing. And then we, you know, ask them and survey them and try to figure things out. And there's two things that I would say they're very equal, but definitely the number one thing is really that mindset where you talked about work ethic. You know, that whole thing where, you know, you really can't have $1 million dream if you're going to have with a minimum wage work ethic. It's there was this really wonderful lady that is a very successful student of ours, and we were in the Cayman Islands a few years ago, and she was one of those people that put a product up on Amazon and didn't have to do anything to it, and it just took off. Well, then she added another product and another product, another product. And within a year, she had 10 products, but was still making the exact same amount of revenue as she was with the one product because the other products didn't take off. And when we called her on that, you know, right there in the Cayman Islands, we're doing this mastermind. She says, but I want to spend my time with my family and friends. I don't want to have to work this. And, you know, everyone was like that. Thank you for being honest. But it's like, you can't do that. You know, the whole lifestyle thing, everyone thinks, you know, when I say, oh, you know, the freedom of having your own business, it's not freedom from having to do work. It's freedom from being confined to working for someone else. You're free to be able to work where you want and pursue the things that you want to do, your own things, not being tied to someone else. And so you've got to understand that you have to have a hard work ethic because it's going to take a lot of hard work. starting a business is easy. Anyone can do that. You can go down and register a business super easy. You can do it online. Like, that's starting a business. The growing and running a business, that's completely different. You've really got to focus and work hard for that. And you have to have the right mindset going into it. Doesn't mean you're going to be doing that forever, but it just means until you get to a point where you can start stepping away. It took me a lot of years to be able to do that. Until you can step away, that you can, but you plan for it. And I think, it's that focus on the long term instead of like now. And we have, we'll teach people and we'll have people sign up and they'll be like, hey, I want to make money by this time. And like that time is like a month and a half from now. It's like, sorry, it's not a get rich quick thing either. It's you're building a real business. And that's the other part of that mindset, is knowing that you're not building an Amazon business. We're leveraging Amazon. You're building a whatever brand you have type of business. So if you are, let's just say you're in the cell phone cover case business, you are in the cell phone cover case business. Whether you use Amazon or not is completely irrelevant to the type of business you're in. So you need to focus on that and realize, okay, but I'm using Amazon as a tool. So how do I leverage Amazon to the fullest potential? So I'd say that's my number one challenge that I see with people. They just don't have it in their mind that it's going to take hard work. They think this is going to be easy, and then all of a sudden when the hard work hits, they're like, I don't want to do this. They make up 1,000,001 excuses why they want to do something else. The second one really is that fear of decision making. This is why so many people quit. And I'd have to say it's 99% of why people quit is they feel that the pain of making a decision and following up on that decision with an action is way too much pain. I think about my brother, who is at the live event, he has a very successful business. He was approached by someone and said, I'll pay you for help. And he was, and it's easy. All you have to do, and he was dead serious. He said, just pick the product that I should start with. And that's exactly it. People are so afraid to make the wrong decision and move and take action on that decision. There's no way you could expect, like, the chance of, like, I think there's less chance of somebody else picking a product for you to start with being successful than your own, because if it's not a product you have any desire to run with, you're going to fail. So it's really in that mind getting in. Manny, I've got to believe you're the same. You're very successful. Look how you've taken off with Amazon. You've done so many things. You've done that because you've made decisions and then taken action on those decisions. And I've got to believe that you give yourself a mindset that it's more painful to not take this action than it is to take the action. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm never content with just being where I'm at. I'm like, I always want to look for that next level, and I enjoy the challenge, and yeah, it's great.
And we have this great couple of students, Eric and Karen, that are this beautiful couple that they were one of our early success stories too, and they quickly got up to about $50,000 a month. And actually, you heard them at the live event. They were talking about this, and they could not get past $50,000 a month. And, Karen wanted to make changes, and Eric was like, no, everything's working well. Let's just leave it as it is. And they would not change anything because they were too afraid to take that action, to make a decision of something and take the action to improve on their listing, because they thought, everything's good right now. Well, what happened is they ended up getting into some kind of, I don't remember if it was a copyright, but something to do with the type of product they had. So their business was completely taken away from them. They had to start from scratch. Well, they completely changed their mindset now, and Karen was able to take over and restart the whole business. And with all the things that she wanted to do before, they're now doing over $150,000 a month with the exact same business model. And it was all because of being able to finally realize now, they didn't have anything to lose, so they could start over. But they realized, like, if they would have done this earlier, they wouldn't have gotten to the trouble they had, and they'd be so much farther ahead than they are now. And a lot of that just had to do with even just optimizing their listing differently. They went from being a very corporate voice to actually being more of a family-friendly voice with the products. But they were too afraid to make any changes before. And now when they did make the changes, look what it did for them. So I'd say definitely the top two are mindset, and then that just fear of making decisions and taking actions on them.
Okay, great.
The next thing is knowing your numbers. It's, it comes down to math. I mean, if you don't know math in your business, you're going to be in trouble, whether it be expenses, revenue, profit, taxes, any of that kind of stuff. You need to know your numbers, but especially in the beginning, it's just knowing the basic numbers. How much traffic are you sending? What are your conversions? And, what do you have to do to improve on that? A lot of people right away, they'll focus on the wrong thing. Like they'll get their product on Amazon and then they'll start split testing different titles. So one week they'll have one title, the next another, but yet they're only getting like 10 sessions a day. And so it's like, well, whoa, you're totally focusing on the wrong thing here right now. To be able to effectively split test anything, you need to have a lot of people looking at the page and looking at conversion rates. So what you want to do first is focus on traffic. And I think that's the number one thing people don't do is focus on traffic. Amazon rewards you exceptionally well when you have diverse traffic. If you're only relying on the Amazon system, like sponsored ads, or even just having your listing on there and trying to get ranked for keywords, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Amazon rewards for all this different diverse traffic coming to your site. And obviously you have to have the conversion factors to do it. But if you're not focusing on getting the traffic first, then why are you even bother split testing things? Because it's not going to give you any accurate number. If you only have 10 people and all of a sudden you're only getting a sale every 2 or 3 days, you're not going to learn anything. Even if you're making a few sales a day, really look at your numbers and understand, okay, where am I for traffic? What do I want to get my goal at? If I know that to reach my goal of $1 million a year, I have to be selling $3,500 worth of product. My product sells for $35. That means I have to sell 100 a day. Right now, my conversion rate is, say, 10%. That means I need to have, what would that be? 3,000 sessions a day to be able to get that. My math is probably way off on there. I'm just winging it. I hope you understand. So then okay, well, if I need that many more sessions, conversion rate, I'm not going to bother optimizing that. I'm going to focus on driving as much traffic as I can to that listing. As your listing starts getting more and more traffic, obviously there's that beneficial effect Amazon has where it starts rewarding you because the better money-making products Amazon wants to reward. And there's all these other ranking ideas and everything on there. But then once you start getting the traffic, that's when you can start split testing your offers and making them better and tweaking them. Images, major thing, like really focus on images. But it's really understanding that, like, what are the key metrics I should be focusing on? What do I want to achieve? And what are the numbers that I have to get to be able to achieve that? And then working towards those. Does that make sense?
It does. What kind of volume in terms of traffic do you consider a significant number, something that is actually valuable, where you can say, okay, this is enough to decide whether this split testing is valid or not?
Yeah, I'd say the minimum is like 100 sessions a day, really. I used to say 50, but I find that what happens is then people just get lazy with the 50. I mean, 100 is not a lot. It's not a lot at all, but it's the minimum, because if you're getting a 10%, that means 10 sales. That's absolutely minimum. And I guess I'm coming from the mindset too of a beginner there. So, it really, the more the better. And I guess for me, looking at any of my products, we don't even start touching anything until we have, we're up there to the multiple hundreds in sessions, because your focus needs to just be on getting that traffic initially. And, and traffic, and, there's sponsored ads, but a lot of people don't even understand about the Amazon marketing services, which is huge.
Let's talk about that in 2 seconds.
Sure.
That's a whole thing I want to talk about. But in terms of the split testing, what are the top things you're actually split testing? And what have you seen the highest ROI from when you split test, whether it's images or title, that kind of thing?
It's definitely been different, but it's the two things. It's images or title. And what we look at is the click-through rate of our sponsored ads. So that's a huge thing, because you got to look at your conversion rate too. But one of the things, especially with the images, we kind of look at it from the mentality of an ad. With the ad, they see the title and an image, and they see your first image. when you enter in the keyword, they'll see the title and an image, but they'll see a couple other things. And yeah, you'll see the number of reviews and everything, but you can look on Amazon now and you can see a top selling product with 10 reviews next to one with 1,000. I mean, I think as long as you have some reviews, the more reviews, the better, obviously. I mean, social proof, but it's not the end all be all. But I would have to say, I guess I'm leaning towards images because I think it's so understood, underutilized in how big the images actually are. But I guess if I just come to the bare bones of it, the titles have always been my biggest winner gain.
Okay. When you're split testing images, are you mainly just doing the thumbnail, the main image, or are you also doing other images as well?
Do the other images as well, but it's mainly the first couple of images. The top image is really the big one. But it's that, and this is another thing. I mean, you got to be careful with this when you get advice on images. I mean, ideally, my marketing mind came into effect on this and you started talking and makes sense. You want to have images where people can relate to the images and really see how they're absorbing the product. Well, we've tried that on different products and it didn't work. So it really, you've got to just try different things. I mean, use logic, and yeah, it does make sense that, if you're selling a spatula, you want to have a good picture of the spatula, but then you want to show it being used by someone who's, attractive and you can kind of relate to yourself using it. But that doesn't mean that's going to be best. Some people might just want to see different, some audience might just want to see different versions of the spatula. So you've got to really think outside the box and try a bunch of different things. But definitely, I mean, at the minimum is test your title and test that first image. And if you don't have all the images, that's another thing. Make sure you have all the images. That it just helps.
Okay. So Amazon Marketing Services,
Yep.
Hit us with that, because a lot of people are not signed up. They don't even know how to get access to that. So I'd love to talk about that.
Sure. So Amazon Marketing Services is a completely separate entity from sponsored ads, and you can be running sponsored ads within your Amazon Seller Central account and also be running ads simultaneously in your Amazon Marketing Services account. But what Amazon Marketing Services allows you to do is, first of all, you can do killer research with it, because you can put in other ASINs and understand, the Amazon will give you keywords that they recommend based off of those. You can actually advertise on other people's listings. So if you go to a listing right now and you look under the buy box, you can see sometimes on some listings you'll have other people's products under there. So that's how you do that through Amazon Marketing Services. They also, when you do a keyword search, and you'll see on top of the category page, this box that is a big advertisement banner ad for other people's products, that's through Amazon Marketing Services. Plus, you can do just regular sponsored ads, but it's just really powerful, and you can do you can create a custom. So if you go to amazon.com/ FBA High Rollers, I think that's the name of your group. Let's say that was the brand name that you had in your product. You actually get your own custom page that is on Amazon. So it's like an Amazon branded page that's your brand with, you can have different products on there. You can have different verbiage on there. So it's really powerful. You can put videos on there. It's just a really powerful system that helps you go to the next level for being able to market with Amazon. So I absolutely love it. And it's something, and I know Amazon's always changing the rules. And Mike McClary, a very good friend of mine who, one of our very successful students, he's done some awesome training on that whole business model, that whole advertising thing, because there's so much in it that so few people are taking advantage of. And I really don't know why. It's something that I think everybody who's selling on Amazon with FBA should be using right now. Well, in any way, should be using.
I agree with you, Jason. It's absolutely something everybody should be using. And we're seeing now a lot of people have been posting on our Facebook group that they're getting better results from that than they are with sponsored ads.
Yeah, and it's really a bandwidth thing here. If you don't have the time to just add something else and there's other things, of course, focus on what you can. But when you have the ability to do it, check it out for sure.
Well, where else can you get your product? Literally, imagine you have a product similar to a competitor's product, and you have a better price than they do, and you show up right below their buy button. You're going to be swiping those sales like crazy.
Oh, for sure. And advertise on your own listing too. What a better way to prevent people from advertising on your listing, but also to cross-sell them on your product. If you have a spatula and, a frying pan, why would you not want them to be able to see that in everywhere possible? So that's, there's a hot tip for you. How about that?
Perfect. Awesome.
And then, just to keep going on what we were talking about, I think this next one is something that I think a lot of people don't want to admit, but it's what I call suffering from divine inspiration fallacy. Now, I didn't make that up. That's, if you type that in Google, I can't remember what that's even from, the chaos theory or something like that. But it's really, really powerful. And the whole idea of thinking what your customer wants better than you, thinking that, I've figured this all out. It's, I know this product. I know what I'm going to sell. I know what the customer wants. And so you really get into that mindset where I don't need to improve my listing. I don't need to split test it. I don't need to improve my images. These are all good enough. It's really thinking that everything about your product is the best, even when you're adding new products to your brand and expanding your brand, thinking that you don't need to ask your customers, you don't need feedback. I know what my customers want. And really that starts to get dangerous because, again, you're not split testing, you're not interacting with your customers, you're talking to them instead of working with them. And if you go through, I don't know if you've ever heard of the work system called Agile. I'm sure you probably had, but
yes,
it's extremely powerful for being able to do software development and all those kind of things. And they've proven over and over again that the number one way for product development is number one, customer feedback. And, it's funny how we need these other systems to kind of prove this to us and I think it's because the old way of thinking is everything, we didn't have the ability to be able to ask our customers and poll our customers and get feedback from our customers so quickly, but now we do. And if you're not using it, you're missing out. That's the whole idea of open source, crowdsource and all that. It's like get the input of the users, have everyone working, collaborating together to make a better product. And so if you're trying to run your business thinking everything and what products they need, and just keep saying you're eventually going to get to a point, and I strongly believe, where your revenue is much lesser than your expenses because you're not going to be fulfilling what the customer wants. And then last of all, I'd say the biggest thing is people trying to do this alone. It was funny because it wasn't until yesterday I even knew about FBA high rollers. And that's a perfect example.
What?
Well, I've seen this annoying ad on Facebook. No, I just kidding. And I saw it, but I never really knew it was yours. And once I did, I told you that yesterday. Like, dude, yeah, I joined it right away because that's exactly, I'm always hesitant to join communities because you want to make sure that their intent is not to sell you and to trick you. And, you've got to be careful on that stuff. But when I know you, well, I think I know you, and, I trust you incredibly. And I know that, being part of communities like that is of value. And that's something we've always focused on when we launched Amazing Selling Machine, even with our amazing.com community. You can't do this alone. You shouldn't do this alone. And by being able to just bounce ideas off people, for example, the whole thing yesterday with the news that you broke, if you're by yourself and all of a sudden you read that news, that might be the scariest news you've read. But all of a sudden by having it with your community, putting it in a reality check, putting it in perspective, getting encouragement from people, asking questions, it's huge, but also the learning. But the big thing is doing this alone, not doing this alone means not just sitting there and absorbing as well. You've got to give back. And I know, again, everybody that I know that is succeeding is because and it doesn't mean they share in big communities. I'm not talking about that. Even if you just pick, 3 or 4 people that you regularly meet up with, but it's got to be a give and take relationship where you figure, what can I do to help you? And you'll get so much more in return. It's why I've always worked with business partners. It's why I've never wanted to do things where I was just an entity to myself, because I just find that I get so much more out of doing this with others. So yeah, there you go. That would be my top 5 things.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot of good stuff there. You mentioned this earlier when you were talking about breaking down all the tasks you do in a day, writing them down and saying, okay, this is a $10 job, this is a $100 an hour job, and so forth. And one of the higher ticketed items was, the networking. And I think this is really important. You mentioned community. I look at that as networking as well. When I was at the amazing event, your event in Austin, Texas, one of the really cool things, outside of, obviously meeting everybody and speaking at the event, but you guys put on a social for people that were generating 5 figures per month. I think it was $25,000 per month. And that for me was like super eye-opening, because I went in there, and of course, because I had spoken on stage, I had a lot of people that came up and, they want to talk. And I was kind of humbled because some of these guys were crushing it. I think, well, I'm doing 6 figures. Some of these guys are doing 7 figures, right? And some of the strategies they were talking about were insane. So you learn a lot of stuff. I walked away from that event with so much more knowledge.
Oh yeah. That was just to hit on that real quick, we ended up saying, you had to be doing at least 25K. By the time we looked at the numbers, and Matt mentioned it there, when everyone applied and shared what they were making, $160,000 a month was the average of those 200 people that were in that room just for that. It was, and so you're right. Like, you look at the mind power of strategies, and I mean, it's just,
That's mind-boggling. 160K a month, yep. Right? So guys, let me just say this now, okay? Whenever these guys put on an event, go to it. Okay, no matter what it costs, it's just awesome. You're going to walk away with some kind of super nugget. Forget about a golden nugget. It's going to be a super nugget. And I'm not just talking about what's said on stage. What's said on stage, that's awesome. You take notes and you learn. But it's the networking that goes along with it, where you can really learn a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah, we really focus on that because, we want people, and that's where so many of us told us that where they got their biggest benefit was the networking. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I know I say that a lot, by the way, but, you can only teach so much on stage when you have 45 minutes. And, like, for example, when you taught, that was awesome. But really, like, you're hoping that they take 1 or 2 things. But what they, it's those relationships where you can, get people to reinforce what was taught, share their strategies and everything. I mean, that's just so much more valuable. And, we try to have a good time while we're doing it too. So, yeah, which I think you had a good time.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Earlier, you were talking about generating extra traffic. Amazon likes this outside traffic. Where would you say are the best places that you've seen where you're driving traffic from outside of sponsored ads?
So the content marketing is huge. You've got to do it right. And that's something I actually talked about at the event, content marketing in a niche that you're not passionate about, because, it's easy to say you're supposed to start with, a product that you're passionate about, but that's hard. And the reason why we say that is because then it's just, when you're passionate about something, you can talk about it. I mean, look how we're talking about, this business model and things. We're passionate about it. We don't need scripts. We don't need to sit there and rehearse, and we just talk off the cuff, and, it's good content. And that's the idea behind following your passions with, the products. But the reality is you can't always do that. But you need good content. You need to be able to get your message in front of people. Facebook ads are great, but the reality is I don't know a lot of people that are crushing it with Facebook ads and making a profit with Facebook ads. Amazon makes it extremely difficult. You've got to have landing pages. And then, so what happens is if you're sending all your traffic to a landing page, and then all the traffic is going from the landing page to Amazon, you're not getting that diversity of traffic. So you want to be able to try different things. Really, I mean, it's a matter of, prioritizing what you can focus on and then going from there and doing it in spurts. So instead of sitting there and saying, like, every day I'm going to have all this traffic coming from everywhere, you definitely want to have traffic where you do little campaigns where you all of a sudden will plan it out where for this week, I'm going to be putting 20% off on my product and then using a whole bunch of different platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Google AdWords and everything, and drive traffic directly to your listing on those days. Because all of a sudden you're going to get a higher conversion rate because of the sale price, but you're going to see all this spike in traffic. And Amazon looks for consistency, but not so much. So you can do that for a few days and then do it again the next week. Things like that work. But in average, and a lot of people laughed at me. And then when all of a sudden we pulled this, people were saying, oh no, my sales have dropped. Press releases. I know press releases sound silly, but the whole idea, because they were such an old, outdated thing, but they get your content out all over the internet, and then it sends diverse traffic. It doesn't mean that it sends a lot. If every press release you send there sends a half of one person every day, but you send a lot of them, all of a sudden you're getting 10, 20 visitors a day through all this content. Definitely good quality content is another big thing. Really understanding what your audience likes to read, and then creating content, but then promoting that content through social networks. So, one of the strategies that I did that really worked extremely powerful is I use a service called Scripted, and they're a little bit more expensive to get content written, but we had our social media profiles, and what I did is I just made sure that we were posting every day about 3 or 4 times a day. And then we went back and looked at all of the posts that we had that were just random shared content from all over the web that were in that niche. And we identified the content that got the most engagement. So, and really there wasn't a lot, but all of a sudden you'd see like some posts would get nothing. All of a sudden one would get like 7 likes and a share and a comment. So boom, right away, that, okay, that's one that sparked a little bit of interest. So what I did is I looked for 7 articles or 7 types of content that were, it was 5 at the time that I did. I picked the top 5. I went to Scripted and I got writers and I put a job proposal in there for a long article written focused on these types of content. So then they come back, the different writers at Scripted, and they give you proposals on what type of content to start writing. So they'll give you topics. Again, if we're using the spatula example, they'll say, cooking gluten-free pancakes or something like that. I don't know. And so they give you the proposals and you go through them and you approve the ones you want. And then what I did is over a 14-day period, so over 2 weeks, every 2 days I posted a new article on my blog or on the blog. And I did a Facebook post boost on it. So I would do the blog, I would put a snippet of it in with a good image on the Facebook page, and then I would boost that post to a targeted audience. Then after those 2 weeks, we went back, and out of those 7 articles, we figured out which ones had the lowest cost per engagement. And those were the ones, we picked the top 3 that now we went back to the writers and said, okay, now I want you to write content on this. We were able to go from about 40 cents to down to less than 15 cents just in those 2 phases for the cost per engagement. So then we knew, okay, this is what's going to be driving traffic. So you just keep doing that. And the cool thing is you can repurpose that content with different markets and everything. So it's just really figuring out what type of content your market likes, and then figuring out how to get it in front of them. Paid advertisements, I'm really careful about, because you can, managing paid that's one of the things I love about Amazon is they've got one of the easiest to use paid advertising models there is out there. But everyone else, it's so friggin' complicated. And especially when you're trying to deal with Amazon, who just refuses to give any type of conversion data whatsoever. You can't track anything. It's really hard. So you just kind of got to think, if I need to get diverse traffic, that means I need to get content out in lots of different areas. And you'll just find, and it's not like an instant process. I'm Canadian, so sometimes I don't know how to say things right.
I do have a question though. So if you're writing all this this content, okay, and you're using scripted and you've tested all this out, are you driving traffic then directly to Amazon, or are you going to a landing page at that point?
Everything we're focusing on is driving directly to Amazon. But you got to, because I mean, obviously you have your own Shopify accounts or e-commerce stores or everything or anything. But it's really where you are in the business. I think that's actually a huge mistake people make too, is they want to be everywhere and everything way too soon. And if you're not doing, $25,000 a month at least, you don't need a Shopify store. You don't need an e-commerce store. Just create like a simple blog that's just a brand blog that talks about your business and point everything to Amazon. That's
a great point, because a lot of people think that they need to do everything. People have asked me, they're like, well, why aren't you in the European stores of Amazon or here or there? And I'm like, I haven't maxed out the US stores. I'm at a point right now where I'm in the financial crisis part of it, right? Where I'm trying to figure out, how do I generate enough funds to expand beyond where I'm at right now, because the growth has reached a level where I'm like, wow, okay, my next order on this one SKU is going to be a 6-figure check I got to write to my supplier, and that's for one SKU. So once I max out, once I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I don't think I don't see that needle climbing anymore, then I could say I'm going to start focusing on something
Absolutely.
else. You can get confused and your attention gets split a million ways, and then everything suffers.
So, just to go back to, great point, to go back to where I said I had to restructure our whole physical products company. We expanded way too wide, way too fast. We tried to do way too much. And it killed us. It almost zeroed out the business, because all of a sudden our expenses were like, we had no profit. We couldn't invest back in new products. And it's like, whoa, what happened? Going from this extremely profitable to all of a sudden growing for the sake of growth, if that makes sense. It's almost like hiring for the sake of just hiring because you think you're supposed to. We're always teaching, and there's always things like, oh, you need to be doing this or you need to be doing that. But no, you don't. And you hit the nail right on the head. You need to be doing the most important things you should be doing for your business. And that really starts by what you just said too, numbers, math. By looking at your math and understanding, like, if I'm only getting a 10% conversion rate and only have 100 sessions a day, why in the world would you even consider going to the UK if you haven't done any other traffic strategies or growth strategies at all to try to get your current business going? Why would you ever think that opening up an e-commerce store is going to make it easier, that you're going to get more traffic? It's not. In fact, it's going to make it harder. So really understand where you are in your business and then where you want to get to and what it's going to take to get there by looking at those key metrics.
Yeah, everything you do is going to add complexity. So if you can keep it simple and get it to a maximum level, and then move on, you'll be better off. I tell people this all the time, but a lot of people are like, nope, I've got to do this, and this, and I'm like, good luck. I'm there now with the software company, with our social media stuff, the podcast, obviously the selling on Amazon. There's only so many hours in a day. I do like to sleep somewhat. So, at some point you got to be like, I can't do that. Guillermo and I were having a conversation this morning, and first time Guy's ever asked me this, he goes, Manny, you've run quite a few different companies in the past. He goes, have you always been like this busy? Because I'm like, just insanely overwhelmed. Like, no, man, this is probably the most I've been overwhelmed in a long time, because I've kind of bit off more than I can chew within the amount of hours that I wanted to dedicate to everything. But we're finally getting to that point where we're bringing people in and hiring, and it's starting to ease a little, but maybe only 2%. So we got a long way to go.
I think that's to be expected. I went through that about 3 years ago. We're definitely, working a 10-hour day was a minimum, where it's like, 10 hours. You're up in the morning. There would be 16-hour days easily, and it was just go, go, go. And thankfully, I was working out of my home. My wife was working with me, so we were spending time together. But it's, if you want to get to that point in your company, you've got to do that. But you can avoid a lot of that and really focus if you're focusing on the right things. You and I are a little different because we were trying to diversify multiple businesses. I guess, I look at it like this. If you have a day job, that's like running a business. So you're going to have to work those 8 hours. So if you want to grow your company, you're going to have to put in a 10 to 12 hour day. And that means that you're going to have to work your 8 hours. Then when you go home, try to fit in a couple hours, wait until your spouse or partner is asleep, then get back up for a couple hours or get up early in the morning. I mean, to grow a business, it takes work. And that's so whether you're doing it because you got a job or like you, multiple businesses. I mean, yeah, I don't feel sorry for you, Manny. I'm sorry.
I'm sure you've been through it. Yeah. I get it. And, for those people that say, well, I just don't have the time, because I'm already working 10 hours at my regular job. You find the time. Stop watching TV. Like Jason said, he doesn't watch TV, or, get up an hour or two earlier, like you just mentioned. There's ways that you can find an hour here, another hour there, and squeeze it in. For the longest time when I was first starting out, I was absorbing everything I could read, everything I could listen to, man, no matter what. I even put a speaker, Jason. I put a speaker, one of those Bluetooth speakers in the shower so that while I was showering for those 6-7 minutes, whatever it was, I could listen to a podcast at like 2x speed. It was just insane. But I had that drive. I was like, man, I want to get to this. I want to get to, at the time it was a $250,000 in sales for the year. And obviously, I pushed hard and I've gone beyond that. But, you got to have the drive. You got to be willing to do it. You got to not want to be happy with where you're at, And
I know we probably got to get going soon, but I think it's that thinking, like accepting, okay, do you want this to be your business or hobby? Because something, a lot of times people just want to dabble in things and it's like, oh, I want to try out this Amazon thing. Well, then have fun with it. Pick a budget that you're willing to spend. If you make money, so be it. So then don't stress. But if you're telling me you have a goal to have this certain lifestyle and you want to make this a real business and you're serious, well, having not enough time is not an option. It's a crap excuse. It really is. And I mean, I'm sorry. I've been involved with my church. I've got kids. I've got a wife. I've got multiple businesses. I've got friends. We deal with sickness. We deal with all these things. And, there's nothing more insulting than some say, oh, you have no idea how busy it is. It's like, stop. You can make time. But if you find that sleep's more important, then sleep's more important. And it's, you have to just be comfortable with accepting that that's who you are and that's how you're going to do it. But don't make up the excuse and say, well, I'm here because I don't have enough time. That's not going to fly for me.
I agree. And you know what, guys? Your health should be important too. So while you're exercising, anything that doesn't require you to be super focused, especially if you're doing something like cardio, start absorbing, start doing something while you're doing that. It's 45 minutes, an hour.
Always got audiobooks going when I go for a run or a walk, or, I like to listen to my old fashioned 70s rock and roll when I'm hitting the weights. But when you're running or walking, audiobooks are killer. And, I guess to add that's probably a big mistake too. If you're not exercising, your mind is going to have all this built up fuel, your body, and you're not going to be able to think straight. Taking care of your health has to be number one because, you need to be healthy to deal with these things. And that's a good point to add.
Yeah, so that's a real important point. Maybe more important than that is this question. What's one thing about Matt Clark where he'd turn red if you mentioned whatever this is on the podcast right now?
The only thing I'll say, and this doesn't turn him red so much as he accepts it, but when we were first together trying to figure out the whole business model, and he said, the way he thinks, he goes, I'm probably a little different though. He goes, I don't know if this will make you laugh or not, but when I was in grade 3, I decided that I looked down at my G.I. Joes and I decided it was time to put them in the trash. I had to get serious with life. All of his toys away when he was grade 3 and started focusing on reading business books. Grade 3.
That's crazy. Yeah, you can tell the guy has crazy drive. So awesome. We've covered a lot. We definitely went over time, but hopefully everybody has enjoyed this episode. Jason, anything you want to mention to our listeners about products or services you guys have coming out? Because you always have some pretty good stuff.
I'm really proud of our amazing.com membership and what we offer. And we have hundreds of courses, courses just like, how to make awesome converting offers, how to take advantage of Amazon marketing services, all for just one payment of $39 a month. You get, a free trial. So so everyone can try it for 30 days, go through as much of the training as you want. We're very proud of the fact that we vet all of our instructors. We make sure that they are people that do this business model that they're teaching and are successful at it. So I'd love everyone to try it out and check it out. There's a free trial. Go to amazing.com, and I believe it's /start or /go and check it out. It's 30 days free trial. You can learn some awesome skills and hopefully see you at one of our live events.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you taking the time to drop the nuggets you did.
Thank you.
So there you go, guys. Check out amazing.com. I don't get anything from referring you guys to amazing.com. It's just a cool service. I'm actually a subscriber there. I pay my monthly dues, and there's great information on there. So again, no affiliate links, no anything. Check it out if you'd like. It's pretty cool. And if you like this episode, also check out episode number 84. In episode number 84, I talk about how I raised over $56,000 for my Amazon FBA inventory. And I did it in about 2 weeks. And also check out episode number 85. That's where Michael Essick drops gold nuggets on how he's doing over $8,000 per month in profit using Amazon's new merch program. If you like this podcast, please don't miss a single episode. Head over to iTunes if you're not already there and subscribe and drop me a review. I would really appreciate that. And head over and join our Amazon FBA High Rollers group on Facebook. We have over 13,000 members in there right now, okay, active members. Okay, there's a lot of communication going on in there, a lot of nuggets being dropped daily. I'm learning stuff on a weekly basis in there. Check it out. Again, over 13,000 people just like you and me in there. And if you'd like to leave me a voicemail message, I guess it should be just a voice message, not a voicemail message, but a voice message that will play on the air on a podcast. You can ask us questions either for me or for Guy. You can do so at our website at ampmpodcast.com. And as always, there's also a tools section there that shows you all the tools that we're using currently for our business. And I don't mention anything there that I'm not using myself or have used and think drives a lot of value to your business or to your life in some way. That's it, guys. Until next time, take care and keep crushing it. Hey guys, Manny Coates here. If you've been following my podcast, you know I'm a huge fan of the Helium 10 tools for Amazon sellers. I only use the best tools out there, and the Helium 10 suite of tools are, in my opinion, best in class. Now, just because I'm the founder of Helium 10 doesn't mean that's all I use, right? I go where the money's at, and if there's a tool on the market that I haven't made and that tool helps me make money, I'll use it, and I'll talk about it here on the podcast, and I'll even link to it in our tools section at the ampmpodcast.com website. But I can honestly say that there's no place that I know of where you can get all the important tools that an FBA seller would need in one place, where the tools work with one another to help you save time and make you a lot of money. Now, the Helium 10 tools have had a huge hand in helping me go from zero to over $1 million in Amazon sales in just 10 months. Okay, keyword research, listing optimization, and a super tool called 5K Checker that makes sure that the words in my listings, okay, the front end and the back end, are actually indexed by Amazon. And guys, if you're not checking this, you're leaving money on the table for sure, because Amazon is always tweaking their search engine. Okay, so I always use 5K Checker every single month on every single one of my listings to ensure that my listings are still indexed for my keywords and that I'm still pulling in customers like crazy. If you're a longtime listener, you know I'll never use a tool unless it can save me a lot of time or it's going to make me a lot of money. So I'm confident Helium 10 will do this for you guys, all right? There's a money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Check it out. Head over to helium10.com. Helium10.com. That's HELIUM10.com.
You've been listening to the AM/PM podcast hosted by Manny Coates. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.